All in Sports Network. We love sports. All in Sports Network. We love sports.
It is Tuesday, September 24th, and it is SEC week as the number one Texas Longhorns will take on the Mississippi State Bulldogs in Austin. And it should be a very interesting game as Texas will play their first SEC game in their program's history. Will it be Quinn? Will it be Arch? We have a Quinn Ewers update for you from Coach Sark himself with a press conference from yesterday. And then we will break down the quarterback situation at Mississippi State. Are they going to have a new face leading their squad out onto DKR come Saturday? And we are also going to give you an update on baseball recruiting. It was a huge couple-day stretch for Coach Schlossnagel. And then volleyball. Women's volleyball will be starting their SEC play against the one and only Texas A&M Aggies. So we're going to get into everything here shortly. I'm Tanner Carlson. That's Jake Jimerson. You are listening to All In Horns, brought to you by Rogue Sports Network, your daily fix for all things Texas Longhorns, right here on YouTube and where all podcasts can be listened to, whether that be Spotify or whatever your vice is. Look us up, and thank you. Thank you for subscribing. Our big goal when we started this thing was 200 subscribers by the Mississippi State game. We are at 220 thanks to all of you wonderful subscribers, and we still are growing. We've been growing rapidly over the last couple of days, and we want to thank you so much. Keep spreading the word. Keep telling all your friends about us. Keep subscribing, keep listening, keep liking, keep commenting, keep the conversation going. As long as we have your support, we'll stay here right where we're at, giving you all the content that we possibly can. Jake, how are you doing today, man?
Doing good. Like you said, excited about, just kind of hitting that 200 mark way probably earlier than we expected. Longhorn Nation, I think, is amped up. We saw that Saturday with the environment against Louisiana Monroe, and it's nice to see that excitement kind of expand to wanting to support all the content creators that are around Longhorn Nation. There's a lot of good ones. So everyone who subscribes, we appreciate it. And I'm kind of just ready to get to Saturday and get the SEC slate underway. And I think the games are going to start to get really exciting from here.
Yeah, I think so too. And one thing that Coach Sark mentioned in that press conference, and we're going to get to that in just a moment, including the Quinn Ewers update, was the atmosphere at DKR. He really went in on how great it was to see a sellout crowd. It was the fifth largest crowd in DKR history for ULM, Jake, for ULM.
It was the largest crowd of the week for all the SEC schools as well. And so
that says a lot.
This just wasn't happening years ago. The crowd is not only is it big, it's loud. They've hit over 130 decibels, and I think every game, and then they're staying through the fourth quarter.
Right.
If you're going to the games, unfortunately, it's hard for me to make them being here in Kansas City, hoping to make it to one this year at some point, and I'll be staying all four quarters. But to everyone who's going to the game, just props for showing the excitement that this is the number one team in the nation. We've been waiting for this, and then showing out and proving it, and proving DKR can be a top atmosphere in the country.
Well, and Jake, I just wanted a quick mention. So I do the play-by-play broadcast for the Waco Conlink Cadets, and safety Jam Vincent was in attendance at the ULM game, and he is on the verge of maybe that 4-star, 5-star range. He's a junior right now, so it won't be until the 2026 class that he will make his final decision. He's quarterback / safety. He will be a safety. Trust me, people on this. He will be a safety, not a quarterback. But to go to a game like ULM, where he probably gets invited on that visit, and he's probably thinking, really, I'm going to see a blowout. But for the fans to stay the entire game and to show a recruit like that this is what you're getting, even against a ULM. So imagine Georgia, imagine A&M, imagine these SEC schools coming in, and Alabama some years, and LSU some years. It shows those recruits a ton of what they're getting into.
And you're hearing it from recruits when insiders are kind of catching up with them after the games. Almost every single recruit talks about how loud the environment is, how incredible it is. We were not hearing that even even 2 years ago, the Bama game was loud, but then it would kind of taper off come Big 12 play. Now we're not only hearing that from recruits consistently, but we're hearing it against UTSA. We're hearing about it against ULM. We're hearing about it against non-premier opponents. I can only imagine what this Georgia game is going to look like later this year, especially if Texas is still undefeated going into that game. It is going to be even more electric than the Bama game, probably times 10. We talked about it a couple weeks ago. It could be the biggest game ever played at DKR if it's number 1 against number 2.
You're not wrong about that. And let's go ahead and talk about some more of what Sark had to say in Monday's presser. He did give an update on Quinn Ewers, saying that Quinn did practice on that Monday. If he had to put a report out, he'd be listed as questionable for Saturday. Those for everybody who plays fantasy football, that big question mark doesn't really lend you a ton, but it is going to be kind of a work in progress. He says today was a good start. He was impressed of where Quinn was on Monday, and that's kind of the trajectory since the injury happened. He thinks that he is getting better, incrementally better day by day. So maybe by the end of the week, that questionable status maybe turns to probable. Who knows? I mean, it's still kind of up in the air.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of discourse around this online in social media circles between Texas fans, and some people saying you should sit him no matter what. And I don't really agree with that. If he's good to go, if there's a high chance of him re-injuring it, yeah, don't play him. It's not worth it. But if he's good to go, I think a lot of people forget he's only played one full football game this year. He has sat for at least the fourth quarters for all the other games that he's been in. And obviously he didn't play very much in the game he was hurt, only about a quarter. So he needs the reps. I don't want the Red River rivalry to be his first game back. Yes, he did it 2 years ago, but this is a very different Oklahoma defense than they saw 2 years ago. That's going to be a big test. And I don't want Quinn's first hit to come from that OU defense.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. In fact, I was listening to a couple of other Longhorn podcasts. Yes, I spread the love. I'm not stingy when it comes to my Longhorn love. But there were people in the comments, and they were having the same exact discussion that we are right now of if Quinn is healthy, should he play? Should he not play? Should you sit him? Should you play him? Whatever it is. I am of the impression, I said it on Saturday, I have not wavered in my sentiments since, that Quinn needs to get hit once before OU. He needs to feel football. And sometimes when you have an injury, you hear it in the NFL broadcast, you hear it in the college broadcast from former quarterbacks, whether it's Tom Brady, whether it's Tony Romo, whoever your broadcaster is, that sometimes when you come back from an injury, you're just kind of uneasy, and then you take that first hit. You get that first hit out of the way, you pop up, you realize you're okay, you realize that you're playing football. It kind of gets your blood pumping a little bit. I think that's what I need to see from Quinn. That's not in the Red River rivalry game. I need to see it against Mississippi State. Again, if he's healthy enough to play. I'm not saying just throw him out there just for the sake of throwing him out there and he's only 75% or even 80%. I'm leaning more so on like 95, 98 to 100% fine than throw him out there. Let him play for the half. Wait till the game gets out of hand because, Jake, we did the math. Texas is favored by 38.5. Is that right? 38.
It is opened up at, I believe, 35.5, and it's already up to 38.5.
38.5.
That's with not knowing who the quarterback's going to be.
That's not knowing who the quarterback is going to be. In the UTSA game, Jake, that game, the line started at 35.5 and it stayed at 35.5. So now Texas is now favored to beat Mississippi State in its first SEC game at home more than it was favored to beat UTSA.
Yeah, and it's because Texas is 4-0 against the spread. When you keep covering spreads, that those spreads are going to keep growing, and so it just shows the growth that Vegas, who's pretty smart, at the end of the day, is seeing from this Longhorn team. A lot of people, including me, were shocked by the line against Michigan, but that it showed why that line was the way it was when the game played out. And obviously, Mississippi State has not had the best of years. They're likely going to have a new quarterback in this week, and so I think I can understand the line, and I still need to dive into the matchup a little more. But early on, this is one where I think a lot of people are probably going to be betting Texas, even though it's a 38.5 point line.
Well, when Vegas starts losing money, Vegas doesn't start losing money for long. That's just how it works. The moment Texas or anybody else starts making them lose a little bit of money, they make the adjustments. Very much like the Texas Longhorn coaching staff. The defensive coaching staff, Jake, in that second half, I just want to touch on this very briefly. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this. Texas allowed 8 yards, ladies and gentlemen, 8 yards in the second half. That was something you and we didn't even really put that together in our immediate reaction show following the game on Saturday. It was also a late night, so we were probably a little loopy. But 8 yards total. That's enough for one single play. That's just a running back breaking out and getting a 10-yard gain. That's a botched coverage or a broken tackle and someone, getting a first down on a single play. No. 8 yards for the entire half of football against ULM, Jake. I don't care if you're playing a NAIA school. 8 yards in one single half is impressive by a defense.
Yeah, and we kind of did talk about how the defense played a lot better in the second half, and we thought that was because maybe they were a little bit pissed off after letting ULM kind of control the clock for a long time on that drive. But another fun stat about this Texas defense is the last time that a Texas defense gave up less than 21 points in its first 4 games was 1977. And I know
ago.
they haven't played the best of offenses, but regardless, this is not something Texas has done in a very long time, regardless of who their opponents are. So big props to how this Texas defense has come out, because in our preseason shows, we were talking about the defense was the biggest question mark. So far, they've answered the bell.
That was only 40 years removed from Texas A&M's national championship win. Almost a whole lifetime. All right, Jake, going back to Mississippi State, could Arch making this start, his second career start, could he make this game interesting if he's careless with the ball? At what point do you think Mississippi State, what would have to happen for the offense if Mississippi State is in this game, say going into the third quarter or finishing up the third quarter, and maybe it's only a possession or two lead for Texas?
I mean, it's possible. At the end of the day, Mississippi State's going to be more talented than a lot of the teams Texas has played, other than Michigan, obviously. So at the end of the day, there's going to be more speed. There's going to be more size on the field than, a UTSA or ULM. And so, if Arch goes out there and he's careless with the ball, falls in love with the deep ball and throws some picks, that's how you keep a bad team in the game. And, every year you'll see a game where a top team isn't holding their own against a conference opponent they're expected to blow out. And luckily, with this being the first SEC game for Texas, I don't think they're going to come out not focused. I think they're excited to play their first conference game, regardless of the opponent. But if Quinn is not the starter on Saturday, that's going to be important to watch with Arch. Is he taking care of the ball? Because he didn't exactly take the checkdowns and take some of the shorter, easy throws that were there throughout the ULM game. If you go back and you watch every passing attempt, there was plenty of times where Jaden Blue was open in the flats, and then Arch just says, screw it, Wingo or Isaiah Bond or Bolden's down there somewhere, I'm going to launch it. And
Right.
so if Arch does make the start this week, I think that's going to be something, and Sark talked about it in his presser a little bit, but I think he's going to be really stressing to Arch that sometimes you got to take the easy stuff. If the deep shot isn't there, you can't just launch it into double coverage.
The old adage, take what the defense gives you. And here's what Sark did say about Arch's performance in his press conference yesterday. I thought Arch, from an offensive perspective, when we go back and look at it, is kind of what I thought. Channeling a little bit of his Dennis Green there. He is who we thought they were. There's probably 4 or 5 plays in there when he really grasped checking that ball down. The value in that check down to not maybe force a couple of throws and the impact that can have. That's the difference between completing 52% of your passes to 65% of your passes. And that's exactly right. It's more so about the efficiency than it is about just making a big play and making a highlight reel and getting points on the board. That can go for an offensive scheme and offensive game plan and as a whole. Sure, you want to put up points on the board, but you also have to be efficient doing so. You have to control the clock. There's other aspects to it than just 80-yard bombs and playing college football on PlayStation, and just making it look cool. There's more to it than that. And taking care of the football, being allowing your players to make plays for you instead of you feeling like you have to make all the plays yourself at quarterback is, I think, what Sark is hinting to a little bit there.
And Sark did mention later on in his presser as well that he actually took some of the blame. He said he was kind of kicking himself when he went back and watched film that he didn't have some of those quick little extensions of the run game that we've talked about set up for Arch to kind of get him in a rhythm early. And I thought that was interesting that the Sark kind of criticized himself for his opening script. I think he wanted I think Arch likes the deep ball. I think Sark knows that. I think he wanted to get him going with that. But then I think Sark kind of realized after watching the film, I should have got his confidence going and then looked to take the deep shots.
Yeah, I know I'm saying this after the fact, but I remember vividly thinking early in that game against ULM was like, man, I mean, as much as I love them playing aggressively as though Arch is not a backup quarterback, because the one thing I can't stand is a coach treating his backup quarterback and adjusting the game plan to a backup quarterback. I hate it. It's like, let the guy go out there and play football and don't dumb it down for the defense to make it easier on the defense. But I think Sark almost was like, yeah, let's just let Arch be Arch and let him launch it down the field. Whenever internally, I was kind of remember thinking like, I'm a little surprised this is the way they're attacking as aggressively as often as they are. I would think, maybe a shot here or there, but just like constant down the field throws, mid-range throws, instead of doing the checkdowns or the RPOs or screen game to kind of get them going. I was a little bit taken back that wasn't part of the game plan a little bit more.
To be fair, some of that is Arch making the decision because
Sure,
there were
absolutely.
times where he launched it deep. He had Jaden Blue with no one within 15 yards in front of him. And if Jaden Blue has no one within 15 yards in front of him, you make that throw 10 times out of 10, unless Wingo or Bond is just running absolutely wide open 50 yards down the field. But I think Sark wanted to call some plays where there wasn't a deep shot there. Maybe some RPOs. We've seen Arch run some RPOs, and he's efficient in that, at least from what we've seen. Maybe he's seeing something different in practice. I was surprised that there weren't. I don't really recall seeing hardly any RPOs in that opening script, and so that's something. If Arch is in this game, I think maybe in that we're going to see a much different opening script from Sarkisian as compared to last week.
Well, and the whole part about RPOs, Jake, is that they're very easy to run. Is that it's making a read. You're reading one player. Is the player committing forward? Then if the linebacker is coming up and you've got a guy on a slant, you hit the guy on the slant. If the linebacker staying put, you hand it off to the running back. There's only one or two guys you're really reading, or if you got a third option, then you're reading the defensive end crashing in or staying, QB contained. It's not overly complicated, and I know Arch is a smart enough player to run an RPO, so I was a little surprised about that as well. Jake, let's actually swap from the Texas Longhorns over to Mississippi State's quarterback situation. Blake Shapen is out for the game at quarterback for Mississippi State. A freshman will start. Now, whether it is Chris Parson or Michael Van Buren, that remains to be seen. Van Buren Jr. got the nod as the second string in the game in which Shapen got hurt and got to play the majority of the snaps last week. But Chris Parson did get in some of the game as well, and they wanted to get a look at him and kind of see how he managed some of that Mississippi State game a week ago as they got absolutely blasted by Florida. Jake, any word? Have you done any extensive research on this?
I've looked it up. It seems like they haven't named a starter, and I'm not going on Mississippi State boards because I'm sure they are not very pretty right now. So I don't have any insider info on it. But for me, it's just kind of a shame it's not Shapen. Shapen's actually having a pretty good year. I think he had 8 touchdowns, 1 interception, pretty solid completion percentage. I I wanted to see Texas play a competent quarterback like that, and unfortunately, it's still not going to be this week. So it's another week of probably keying in against the run, the same game plan we've talked about all season long. But
Do you
they'll
think,
see
hey,
some
Jake,
good quarter.
do you think the coaching staff feels the same way that we're feeling right now?
The defensive stat, they're not saying it to the players, no shot, but they got to be when they're in the coaches meeting being like, well, rinse and repeat, same game plan. It's probably going to be fairly vanilla again. I don't think we're going to see some of the packages on defense they have cooked up until the Oklahoma game. Same thing for offense, though we've seen a little bit more because they had to get creative against Michigan. But I don't think we've seen a lot of what this defense is going to bring to the table until Oklahoma. And even against Oklahoma, their offense has been struggling. It looks like maybe they found a quarterback, but uh, it's just the coaches have to be joking about it
It's
behind the
isn't it?
scenes.
It's funny that you and we keep saying, man, we're not going to be able to see this defense's full potential until Oklahoma. Jake, Oklahoma's offense looks just dreadful. I mean, they're getting dragged by their fan base. Now, I'm not saying it's Red River. I get it. It's a flunky, weird, goofy game. Oh, you could come out and score 50. Who am I to say? I hope that doesn't happen, but it's Red River. Nothing really surprises me about that game anymore. However, it's ironic that you and I keep saying week after week, man, we're got to save it all. Or Texas probably isn't going to show anything until Oklahoma. Now, I think that's more so because it is like, okay, it's Oklahoma. We're going to empty the bag. We're going to empty the clip against Oklahoma, no matter what it takes. You have to. Like, you're not going to just hold anything back. If you've got something to play, you're going to play it against OU. But it's funny that we keep mentioning the defense not playing somebody until Oklahoma. Well, they're not really going to play anybody till really Georgia, because that Oklahoma offense is, that's a rough scene.
Yeah, we'll see how it looks this week against Auburn with Michael Hawkins Jr. in. He got announced as the starter. I lost my words there for a second. He got announced as the starter on Monday, and he did look much better. Now, was Tennessee kind of taking their foot off the gas? Possibly. I
Yeah.
do know they blitzed him a bunch, and he handled it pretty well. So it will be interesting to see how they look against Auburn, who has a decent defense. So we'll have a better idea of what OU's offense is going to look like against Texas. But like you said, Texas better empty the clip in that game, because you cannot lose that game after losing it last year, and you cannot lose it when you have Georgia the next week. A
No, you're
two-game
exactly right.
losing skid at that point in the season would feel almost season ending as far as playoffs go. It
No,
wouldn't be, but it would feel that way.
it would. And then it would leave zero chance for mistake moving forward into the rest of the regular season. Jake, let's go ahead and switch gears just for a moment. We've got about 7 minutes remaining in the show, and I think the next two topics might bring us to that 7-minute mark. Texas baseball had a huge recruiting week, or weekend, I should say. A trio of recruits from Schlossnagle in the 2026 class. Trent Maben, James Jorgensen, and Finn Waters was on Thursday, and then flips Easton Autry from Texas A&M. He's already flipped a couple of A&M recruits for this year's class and the 2025 class. Jake, the Schloss effect is already in play.
There's been a lot of flips from Texas A&M. They didn't get people through the portal like maybe they were expecting, but as far as on the recruiting trail, I think it's 8 or 9 flips in total that they've taken from A&M, and that's big because Texas baseball was just not up to the standard the last couple of years. And I kind of look forward to that season starting and us be able to kind of keep track of it and talk about it. It's definitely going to be something we're keeping an eye on, because we talk about the SEC being a step up in football. Let me tell you, the SEC in baseball is what people pretend that the football is, because from top to bottom, that conference is absolutely loaded. I mean, in the World Series, it's typically like 80% SEC teams.
It's Vanderbilt, it's Mississippi State, you got
Tennessee, who just won the
Tennessee.
title.
Let's not forget, and LSU is always going to be in the mix somewhere along those lines. So, yeah.
the last 4 national title winners, I believe, and I'm sorry if I have this wrong, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, LSU, Tennessee.
I
That's
think
all SEC.
yeah, and then
And
well,
in several of those, they were playing against an SEC
I
team
was
in
gonna
the
say, yeah, I was gonna say, I know Vanderbilt was thrown in there for a season as well in terms of a
yeah.
runner up. Yeah, so
So maybe the last 5, but
maybe the
yeah, the
last
SEC
5.
in baseball is just dominant.
Yeah, and so it's an uphill battle. And Texas A&M was very good last year, Jake. Texas A&M made a run with Slosh, and so it's very, very it's going to be a very eye-opening experience, especially with a lot of people have always claimed Texas is a baseball school. Now they're a rowing school. I've always mentioned this. They're a rowing school. They're a swimming school. They're a baseball school. They're a football school. They are a school of just really good athletics. I don't think you can really put one single pin in the bulletin board of what Texas identifies as when it comes to their athletic program. But baseball season is going to be really fun, Jake. It's something that I have over the last couple of years, I've just not followed it as closely since Texas's last trip to the national championship or to the College World Series, just because it's been down. But I know in terms of the trio of recruits, getting pitching is something that has been on Schloss's radar, and he has done exactly that. The pitching staff has fallen woefully short the last couple seasons. Schloss is trying to make it a one-season turnaround.
Yeah, and I mean, talk to any Texas fan that watches the baseball for the last couple of years, and they'll tell you that the pitching has just been horrible to watch. The starting pitching's been okay, but when you get into that bullpen, no lead was safe. You could be
Yeah.
up 7 runs and it wasn't safe. And so,
Well, there's a couple times
I'll
happened.
be curious to yeah, very true. I'll be excited to see how this year turns out, but I'm even more excited as they get into that second and third year in the
Sure.
SEC when he's had a little time to turn around the roster. I do think there's more hope for this season than there would have been if they kept Pierce. But it's going to be fun to keep track of. And also, you talk about wanting to make road trips for the football games. Well, there's a lot of amazing environments for SEC baseball, and I've never really been one to seek out road trips for college baseball games. That might change as Texas is in the SEC, getting to go to A&M. They have a crazy environment. This year, that might not be safe. Those psychopaths are going to burn the city down.
The Colt will be the Colt will have they'll have their tiki torches all lit down the streets again. Yeah, it'll be an ugly scene. Maybe if you go, you just wear neutral colors and you just kind of hold up the. No, it's always loud and proud, baby. You ain't gonna catch me hiding the horns at any venue. No chance. Jake, let's finish up the show with Texas volleyball. Number 8 volleyball will be, speaking of the Colt, at A&M Friday to open their SEC play. So Texas football, not the only one starting SEC play. Volleyball will also be doing it come Friday. Going into SEC play, conference play at 5-3, but coming off of back-to-back wins over a ranked Baylor team, over a Hawaii team. Jake, going into the SEC, Texas has to be hands down the favorite to win the conference this year.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the Texas schedule, and I don't think they have a ranked team on it the rest of the year.
Now that could change. It could change.
Now that it could change, and I know A&M was okay. Well, for them, they thought they were really good last year. Of course, ended in them losing to Texas. But I remember all their fans in the comments after that game being like, "This was a really good building year." It's amazing how many. There was a national title for building years. A&M would dominate every sport. Let me tell you, they are the greatest athletic department of having building years.
Dude, Texas A&M's building years would win a President's Cup like Texas has the last few years.
The problem is they're building a trailer park. That's the problem.
They're still building the trophy cases, Jake. They're just constantly building trophy cases that remain empty no matter what.
The Hall of Champions, that is just comically empty.
Well, there's a blank space for Jimbo's trophy, right? That's still in there, right? It's got to be, right? That's their only trophy.
Donated to an Austin restaurant. I need to find which restaurant it is and go see that in person.
Well,
that is a relic.
I think they auctioned it off, and the Austin restaurant bought it, and they won the bidding war for it, and they have it displayed very proudly for all to see. Jimbo Fisher, national champion of year. That's just beautiful. I love it. It's a great meme. Well, Jake, that is our 30 minutes, man. Anything else you want to wrap anything up, man? All right. Well, hey, we will see everybody tomorrow, same time. Thanks for joining us again. 200 plus subscribers. We're at 220 right now. 300 by Mississippi State. That's for you guys to determine, not us. We'll just keep giving you great content each and every day right here on All in Horns. Hook 'em.
All in Sports Network. We love sports.